redistribution of wealth, shared prosperity. And to begin with, allow me to introduce our moderator, that is Datuk Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, Advisory Board of KL Summit, together with all of our distinguished speakers already on stage, I believe. Inshallah, Doctor. Therefore, the floor is yours, Doctor. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah alladzi bi wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyil huda war rahmah man alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi al khiyaratil bararah. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good morning. As'adallahu sabahakum wa jum'ah mubarakah. Welcome to the second session of the second day of the KL Summit 2019. We are privileged and honored to have 4 distinguished speakers or panelists to take us through, to discuss and unlock the very important of the topic of redistribution of wealth, shared prosperity. We have in front of us 4 distinguished speakers from 4 different backgrounds and perspectives, I would assume. On my immediate left, the Honorable Datuk Seri Azmin Ali. He is the Minister of Economic Affairs. His current portfolio as Minister of Economic Affairs includes the Economic Planning Unit, the Private-Public Partnership Unit, the Government Linked Companies GLCs, and many other portfolios, not to mention the National Shared Prosperity Vision of Malaysia 2030. Prior to the last general election, he was the Chief Minister of Selangor, and he has transformed the state of Selangor in many ways. And one of these initiatives is the shared prosperity at the state level. Next to him is Mr. Usamah Jamal, Secretary General of the United States of American Council of Muslim Organization. Next to him, on the left, Sahibus Samaha, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Asri bin Zainal Abidin, currently the Mufti of the state of Perlis. He is one of the highly qualified, credentialed, and credible Islamic scholar and thinker in Malaysia. Last but not least, we have with us on the stage Dr. Muhammad Amin Mukra from Kyiv National University, Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of shared prosperity, I assume, I believe as well, is very close and dear to our hearts. It has been the very vertical of Islamic teaching. It's very appealing to some extent. Somehow the recent incident in Hong Kong in the last few months has triggered the alarm that a very strong economy of the world, having no budget deficit for many years, has to deal with the issue of shared prosperity, the equality of income, and the rest. Many governments of the world have started looking into the issue of social agenda, and that includes shared prosperity. The Quran, to some extent, has rightly alluded to the theme of redistribution of wealth in his Quranic verse, Kaila yakuna dulatan bainal aghniyai minkum, so that the wealth is not being circulated only among those who are rich among you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would believe that the session by the learned speakers and panelists will be able to unlock many interesting issues. Even in Malaysia, the Malaysian government has recently launched the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. Among other objectives is to reconstruct the development for all, to look into the economic activities so that everyone will not be missed out. There's a kind of inclusiveness in putting our economic activities to address wealth and income disparities, and to have and to build and to construct united, prosperous and dignified nation. Surely we're going to have many interesting discussions. I have, on my own personal capacity, have taken the liberty to check the data using my machine learning, and it seems that the sentiment of Malaysian towards shared prosperity has been very positive in the last 3 months, scoring about 70% in Malaysian context. And at the global level, the sentiment toward the world of shared prosperity is around 40 to 50%, which is still positive. I think with that note, I would like to now have the pleasure to invite the first panelist, the Honorable Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali, to present his insight and perspective. The floor is yours, Datuk Seri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Honored speakers, guests and delegates, this is a very historic moment. The Kuala Lumpur Summit has ushered in a new era of discourse, vibrant exchange of ideas, frank and candid deliberations for a practical and action-oriented collaboration among Muslim nations. Its significance cannot be overstressed because the Muslim and Muslim majority nations account for approximately 6.5 trillion US dollars and 7.6% of the global economy in 2018. With a combined population of 1.7 billion Muslims around the world, not only are we rich in resources, but we are also rich in human capital. Large segments of the Muslim workforce are talented and can be mobilized to play a significant role in global affairs. However, current efforts to engage with problems facing the Ummah are disparate and segmented. Consequently, we lack the critical mass to generate the economies of scale. Therefore, the Kuala Lumpur Summit 2019 is an important platform to pull together resources of the Ummah to make a concerted push to resolve the problems and take collective action. Major shifts in the geopolitical arena, such as the collapse of the political center and the rise of populist forces in various parts of the world, as well as the spread of Islamophobia, have made it even more pressing for us to set a clear direction forward. The rise of China as the new geo-economic behemoth, the emergence of strong regional growth centers, and the resurgence of protectionist trade policies are indicative of a historical paradigm shift in global affairs. While some Muslim countries are blessed with rich natural resources, reliance on resource-based industries have resulted in underdeveloped economies where resources are not exploited efficiently and productivity remains stagnant. This has created instability in the region, as disparity between Muslim and non-Muslim countries, as well as among Muslim countries, continues to widen. A more united and inclusive framework is needed. At the World Bank seminar in Hong Kong, back on 20th September 1997, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad spoke about the doctrine of prosper thy neighbor, where he explained in very clear terms, it simply means if you help your neighbor to prosper, you will prosper along with it. This is crucial because it is the counter-concept to the idea of beggar thy neighbor, which refers to economic and trade policies that would impoverish other countries. In other words, while some countries get richer, others become poorer. On the other hand, a prosper thy neighbor approach within the framework of Muslim nations means that we need to facilitate free and fair trade amongst ourselves so as to generate long-term economic growth. In this regard, it bears repeating the point that was explored concerning the benefits of trading in local currency so as to avoid over-dependency on other dominant currencies. Along with this, Muslim countries must move in tandem with advancement of technologies, including fintech. This is crucial to increase our collective wealth so that we can spread the prosperity for the benefit of all. Malaysia's Shared Prosperity Vision 2030 is a holistic approach towards achieving a higher value economy while reducing the gap between income classes, communities, territories, and supply chains to ensure equitable outcome for all Malaysians. Within the Southeast Asian region, Malaysia has worked tirelessly to forge strategic alliances on the back of the Prosper Thy Neighbour doctrine that promotes the principles of shared prosperity. Such alliances create stability in the region, along with opportunities to invest and create new jobs and wealth. Shared prosperity requires good governance. Unfortunately, many Muslim countries are not shining examples in this regard. Therefore, there is an urgent and pressing need to introduce measures for good governance, transparency, and accountability for Muslim countries. Shared prosperity must also be protected. Joint pacts and strategic geo-economic alliances of the Muslim nations must be a reality if we are to ensure shared prosperity towards a sustainable and secure future. As alluded to earlier, there needs to be greater trade amongst Muslim countries to create that critical mass and economies of scale to generate wealth and prosperity. FDI in each other's economies will be a boon to the wealth creation of Muslim economies, even as we continue to trade and invest with other states. In this regard, modernization is key if we want to overcome the structural and developmental barriers to achieve a higher value economy. Therefore, we need to keep pace with the advances of the fourth industrial revolution. Towards this end, in respect of the country's national food security policy, Malaysia will set up its largest dairy farm in close cooperation with Qatar and leveraging on its technology and expertise. We also look towards enhancing our cooperation with Turkey, which has an advanced defense industry and now produces over 70% of its own military equipment. Turkey is also one of the 4 most advanced drone manufacturers in the world. Indonesia leads the way in establishing a tech and investment-friendly business environment where startups like Gojek has established the gig economy as an additional source of income to spur growth and unlock new economic potential. We also welcome the establishment of a proton assembly plant in Karachi by 2021, aimed at generating investments and creating jobs that will directly benefit the people of Pakistan, as well as spurring commercial activities. It also showcases Malaysia's advancement and expertise in automotive engineering. These are examples illustrating close cooperation, where we can pool together resources and expertise in the context of comparative advantage for Muslim nations and advancing the shared prosperity principle. It is imperative that the richer and better resourced Muslim countries mobilize their resources to advance the development of new high-skilled human capital of the less developed Muslim countries. Ladies and gentlemen, in due course, I'm confident that we will be able to realize the aims of our shared prosperity vision among the Ummah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your insightful presentation and for unveiling a few projects that are going to take place between Malaysia and many respective Muslim countries. I think the Minister has mentioned a few themes which are very critical on the need to have free and fair trade, on the fintechs to make our business more inclusive, and more importantly, if I can pick up the issue of higher value economy, because the data of the world tend to show that there is inequality of income because many of our workers are paid less because they don't have the necessary expertise and skill set. So perhaps the low-skilled workers can be upgraded so that they can have more income to bring back to the home, and that will help to fight the issue of inequality and disparity of income. We may come back to the issues raised by the Honourable Minister in the Q&A session afterward. Let me move on to the second speaker, Mr. Usama Jamal from the Secretary General of the United States of American Council of Muslim Organizations. He has some ideas and thought, and perhaps he can relate what the Muslim community has been struggling in the case of USA in terms of helping one another and try to create an environment that can distribute the wealth within the Muslim community in USA. فَتَفَضَّلْ مَشْكُورين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Respected colleagues and scholars and guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our Prophet, peace be upon him, has taught us, one who does not thank people does not thank Allah. My sincere thanks to our honorable hosts of this most timely conference and to all participants and guests. May Allah grant us the best success, guidance, and light in helping return our societies and the world to a direly needed state of social, economic, and financial justice, and to forgive our excesses in all our affairs. I call this global need for social, economic, and social justice dire because we have come to such an unprecedented, dangerous intersection in the history of humanity. At the very moment humanity has come to the frightening threshold of the converging disasters of climate change, the tremors of catastrophic social upheaval have begun to shake the foundations of our nations and world. Indeed, many now argue that the epicenter of both these calamities, climate change and social unrest, is one, a deliberate, decades-long, merciless assault on the earth and the common people by the world's corporate and financial elites have used governments, lawmakers, and brute force to greedily suck the wealth of the world out of the earth, and at the same time out of the hands and mouths of millions upon millions of the world's desperately needful. The woeful state of our world today cannot possibly be exaggerated. It is utterly exposed by the growing steep gap between the impossibly rich and the disgracefully poor. And make no mistake, although we Muslims make up nearly a quarter of the planet's population, we are far, far overrepresented among the world's victims of conflict and economic devastation. Take a moment to consider this picture. In the name of dinar and dirham, violent conflict has now driven a staggering 70 million disparate human beings from their homes. Nearly half of the 41 million of these whom the world's labels displaced, you and I called by more familiar names, brother and sister, son and daughter. They are our kin in Islam. They are Muslims. As astonishing 2/3 of the world's 26 million faceless refugees also share that name given to you and me by our father Abraham. They are Muslims. And God help the little ones. Conflict has given these children a new name altogether, orphans. The mushrooming number of these innocents in the world, led by Muslims, but of every faith and place, now totals a humanity indicting 153 million. If they were a nation, they would be the 9th largest on the earth. This paints a horrifying portrait. Yet our true global selfies gets even more horrifying. Half of all humanity, 3 billion beating hearts, live in the monstrous poverty in just $2.50 a day. Yet another 1.3 billion are barely surviving on half of that, $1.25. These statistics by the United Nations. And what of the 850 million of our human fellowship that don't have enough food to eat? Some 22,000 of them will die today before we eat our dinner. And every day after into the foreseeable future for lack of a bit of a bread. And if we turn our sight from the tragic image in our picture of these starving people, our eyes will fall on yet another 750 million that can't find clean, drinkable water. So they drink from the same sewage they urinate and defecate in, with no purified streams to hand wash. Some 2,300 of them would perish from our painting in the time we sit here together. In the rush of our vast wealth, food abundance, and globally obesity epidemic, how guilty are we that hunger remains the leading cause of death in our world? At the same time, we see enormous plumes of ungodly prosperity gushing ever upward, so great that less than a fourth of the earnings of the 100 richest people on earth could end global poverty in days. So this is our snapshot of sinful wealth distribution across our planet today. Yet let me clear, one of the greatest tasks that Allah has given to Muslims is to cure poverty, not just among ourselves, but in the entire world. This says to me something critically important. Allah does not task a soul beyond its capacity. That means He has given us the bounty on the earth and the divine structures, instruments, and inspirations in Islam to deliver the remedy to poverty to all without exceptions. So no topic could be timelier than the one chosen for this conference. Allah tells us in an early surah of Surah Al-Baqarah, it is He who created everything on earth for all of you. He means for every human being to have a share in the prosperity He put on earth. So it is a major objective of Islam to reduce the economic distance between the haves and the have-nots. And for this, it has a clear meaning. Social institutions like zakat, that oblige the rich to give to the poor yearly, and that greatly incentivize investment, and therefore job creation and fair income distribution to begin with, while categorically disapproving of hoarding money, which Islam is dead against. And we have economic directives that maintain socioeconomic balance by determining how the wealth we accomplish or accumulate is to be redistributed equitably. Take, for example, Islam's inheritance law. Economist Timur Quran's The Long Divergence shows that Islam's economic history holds hardly a case of, and I quote, successful business or merchants' families that remain dominant for more than a few decades. because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inheritance rule so effectively redistribute wealth. Or take the ruling on spoils in the Quran, just my moderator just mentioned earlier. In Surah Al-Hashr, Ayah 7, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ما أفاء الله على رسوله من أهل القرى فلله وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. Thus, whatever spoils God has turned over to his messenger, it shall be for God and for the messenger to disperse, and for his close relatives who are prohibited from charity, and for the orphans, and for the indigent, and for the wayfarer, so that it does not merely circulate between wealthy among you. Global institutions set up by the West to regulate international finance notoriously tie their help to poor countries in dire need to so-called austerity measures. These precepts inflict maximal fiscal pain on these already impoverished economies, and more so on their hard-pressed people. These agencies claim consultation between scholars, but in truth, the same assumptions of their man-made materialist philosophies are never going to produce the different economic ideas and strategies that an increasingly economically battered world so clearly and desperately needs. It is the Muslim countries and Islam-versed economic thinkers that must introduce the fiscal principles and wealth distribution paradigm of divine revelation if we are to save our world. I'll close with this. Word from the Islamic scholar Al-Bahi Al-Khawli, immeasurably relevant to the theme of this conference. Nations are founded on spiritual and psychological elements, in addition to material factors. Indeed, the spiritual factors count for much more in creating unity and vitality in any community. Islam pays great attention to these factors and makes spending of the income of the community to nurture and support these one of its major obligations. He goes on to show how zakat underwrites these major objectives of human beings in community. Freedom by its liberation of slaves from the first time in history. Human harmony by encouraging individuals to carry out projects of public interest and to spend towards smoothing out differences between members of the community and reconciling individuals and groups in order to avoid social unrest. And spending in the way of Allah to support those who defend the ideals and doctrines of which Allah sent his messengers and who publicly uphold the oneness of Allah and righteousness on earth. So it is Islam's divine revealed imperative of wealth distribution and social development like zakat, inheritance, sadaqah, mahr, and other instruments of financial disbursement Islam institutionalizes that form the great support reinforcing the communal life of the human being. All of these social instruments established by God and detailed by his messenger. We could know better what it takes to bring freedom, peace, and prosperity, the worldly objectives of Islam to all creation, that its creator and his guided messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our task is to translate these principles of worship in Islam, for that is what they are, into developmental policies and programs for our nations. It is on us to activate these divine values and morals in order to reset the lost balances that God originally set in the world with justice. For it is precisely these just balances that humanity has transgressed and now suffers because of these alike never before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osama Jamal, for that enlightening perhaps critics of the world policy on wealth distribution. Of course, the same criticism goes to our Islamic community as well, because we have not been making ourselves up to the mark in formulating what you mentioned about fiscal policy towards wealth distribution in many Muslim countries. Surely, as you would agree with all the panelists thus far, that shared prosperity has no religion, has no race, and has no home address. It appeals to everyone, and it transcends beyond any geography or any ethnicity as we speak. We move on to the third speaker, Sahibul Samaha, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Asri bin Zainal Abidin, to share with us his ideas and perspective on shared prosperity. فيتفضل مشكورا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this great event. And it is actually an honor for me to be one of the speakers in this historical and significant event for Muslim world. Before I start, I would like to quote a statement from a prominent scholar, preacher, da'i, who died 20 years ago in his famous book, ماذا خسر العالم بانحطاط المسلمين, Maulana Abul Hasan Ali al-Nadwi. And this book was written, I think, more than 17 years ago. He said, it is the duty of Arab world to be an independent Muslim world in trade, wealth, industry, and education. Its people should wear no garments other than what has been grown on their own land and owned by their own hand. Certainly the Arab will not be able to wage war with the West should condition require this, as long as it still needs the West for wealth, passion, and goods. There is no pen that we use to sign treaties with the West other than those made in the West. There is no weapons used to fight the West other than those made by the West. It is an utter disgrace when Arabs do not take advantage of their own great resources and strength. It is an utter disgrace when the life force flows out of them and into other people. This is a very interesting word by Maulana Abul Hasan Ali al-Nadwi. Ladies and gentlemen, when we call Muslims to help one another in economy matters, some quarters disagree out of fear that we be seen as promoting racism. Actually, we never ask anyone to boycott the goods or the services of non-Muslim. What we are doing actually merely advise the Muslim to consider the economic condition of the Ummah when spending for goods and services. We Muslims, despite having a fairly strong purchasing power, the Muslim society relatively backward in terms of production and market share of goods and services. In countries like Malaysia, I believe in Indonesia and some country, Muslim country, where Muslim and non-Muslim live together, the Muslim in this country remain generally weak in business sector. Muslim traders are facing fierce competition in economy where it's difficult for them to market Muslim goods and services. At a national level, Muslim countries are still dependent on the West. This is one of the factors that make the Muslim world to be puppets controlled by the West. Even though Muslim countries are rich in natural resources, especially oil and gas, we have consistently failed to establish a strong trade bloc that unites the Muslim world. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is sad reality of our ummah. So don't ask why there are so many Muslim country or Arab country who always bow to the West. Our honor has been tarnished, and we become slave of economic imperialism, even though some of us appear to be rich. And I would like to quote what Dr. Qaradawi said in his book, Ayn al-Halal. He said that we are proud to own imported luxury cars, but we do not even know how to manufacture a bicycle. Ladies and gentlemen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Anfal, verse 60, وَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رِبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ وَعَدُوَّكُمْ. And prepare against them whatever you are able of power. وَمِن رِبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ, and of steeds of war, تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ وَعَدُوَّكُمْ, by which you may terrify the enemy of Allah and your enemy. We know in this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us as Muslim to develop our strength in order to defend ourselves. And we know nowadays, besides military weapon, economic power is also new weapon in our modern era. Economic strength can produce the same result like conventional, like military weapon, like conventional weapon, on striking fear of one's enemy. This is the turhibuna bihi aduwallahu wa aduwakum, is maqsad, purpose, objective, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, wa'iddu lahum mastata'tum min quwwah. Ladies and gentlemen, so given the miserable situation that we are now, the ummah at all levels, individually, nationally, internationally, is responsible to foster Islamic brotherhood, Islamic solidarity, providing goods and service of high level, high quality is an obligation, so that we might achieve economic freedom and no more depends on others. So that is our duty to buy Muslim products and to patronage shops and markets owned by Muslims. So this is our duty to fulfill this obligation. We are obliged. And at the international level, trade among Muslim nations is a duty of all Muslims. At the international level, trade among Muslim nations is a duty of all Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, in hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari wa Muslim, and we got scholars of hadith, I think I should bow my head in respect to many our scholars here, Sheikh Al-Alama Muhammad Al-Hassan Dadu and Sheikh Qaradawi Alama. Back to the hadith that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innal ash'ariyin idha armaru fil ghazw aw qalla ta'amu 'iyalihim bil Madinah jama'u ma kana 'indahum fi thawbin wahid thumma iqtasamu bainahum bis-sawiyyah fi ina'in wahid fahum minni wa ana minhum." When the Ash'ariyin ran short of food in the jihad or when they are at home in Medina, they collect all the provision that they have in a sheet and they divide it equally among themselves. فَهُمْ مِنِّي وَأَنَا مِنْهُمْ. They are of me, I am of them. This hadith, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised the spirit of helpfulness, assistance and mutual concern among Ash'ari. They are tribe. Of course, we know that if mutual assistance in a group was permitted and prized by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially during times of difficulty and desperation, then certainly mutual assistance among Muslims is even more necessary when Islam is oppressed and under threat. Ladies and gentlemen, if we take this spirit of al-ukhuwah Islamiyah, we can realize the awareness about the importance of this spirit and mutual assistance. And I can say that in our condition, there is some advantage that we have. One of them, first is high purchasing power that we have as a Muslim ummah. We know that now we Muslim 1.7 billion. This large Muslim population possess, of course, a high purchasing power. And if this buying power can be exploited positively, a strong economic power will surely emerge in Muslim society. Second, the issue of halal and haram. Of course, that concerns all of us as a Muslim. But I say that why? This is because we Muslims fail to produce our own food. If we want to take this opportunity to address food security of Muslims, then we must urge them to become producers and not merely consumers. Third, existing tensions. We know tension between West and a Muslim world actually can create an ummah that is strong and independent. We should encourage Muslim, tourist Muslim to go to Muslim country. We should encourage Muslim to buy Muslim products. And fourth, fair and just share of wealth. There is a global campaign that calls for responsible and sustainable consumption and production. This is a golden opportunity for Muslims to promote ethical consumption and production as guided by the Wahyu revelation that uphold justice in wealth distribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahibul Samaha, for that a very courageous call for the Muslim to consider buying Muslim product first. I would like to, as a footnote, to quote data from OIC intra-trades among Muslim countries. The data that we have, perhaps last few years ago, not the recent one, is less than 3 or 4 or 5%, which is very, very low. For me, it's not we don't want to buy from each other, but because we have not become producers and manufacturers as yet. We don't produce the end product as yet. We produce the raw material, but the end product will go somewhere into the Europe and come back to Muslim countries. As rightly alluded by our Honorable Prime Minister yesterday, that we are not yet manufacturers and producers to encourage the scheme of buying Muslim product first. So this is something, a challenge to take, to take us forward to produce more manufacturers and producers. Now we come to the last speaker of the session. I'm conscious about the time. We have another session after this. So let me go straight to the last speaker, Dr. Muhammad Amin Mukra, to share your perspective on the topic of shared prosperity.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وله ثم بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. إن موضوع إعادة توزيع
redistribution of wealth is one of the most important issues that are addressed in the arena because it has a lot of impacts. But before I address this topic, I would like to put it in its time frame. Let me be frank, because the elite of humanity, who are the prophets, were tasked to inform. So the elite of the Islamic world to be very frank in informing their leaders and people about the situation the Islamic world is in. So in fact, I'm going to summarize this time frame in some points. Number one, state in the previous ages was not required to provide what the state today is required, like healthcare, education, housing. But state today, national state today is required to care about humans from the mother's belly until he graduates. They have to care about his health. After that, find him a job, a house, and many others. However, the Islamic world in this frame complains from dire crisis. The concept of a state in the Islamic world began to dismantle because it is built on many conflicts after the Second World War. This is about the concept of state, and it is required to provide full life for the individual. And the Islamic world can't achieve this objective unless it is powerful. So the topic of wealth redistribution cannot be achieved unless it is powerful and able to establish wealth. After that, able and qualified to redistribute it. Second, about time frame. In what age we are living? The age we are living in, it is the digital age. If humans has passed in many stages of mechanical stage, industrial stage, technological stage, now we are in the digital stage. It is very dangerous, very serious. If the material civilization has reached the power, the material, and you used it properly, and this created brutalism among humans. So in the Islamic world, we can imagine the future. Imagine when the digital life become the dominant in the world. That's why we see in the conflict about hegemony against Muslim world leads to demolishing Muslims around the world to have their own projects. The time element is being controlled by the material civilization, either in Europe, America, or many other areas. So if human is moving like a missile and plane speed, then he has to be like light speed. So the gap between Islamic world and the other world will get bigger and bigger, and this will become more serious and dangerous on Muslims. Also, in the same respect, when we talk about redistribution of wealth, we have to speak about Muslim individual, community, and state. Geographically speaking, Muslims are disunited. Their countries are dispersed and torn, and this prevents them from exploiting their bounties Allah given to them. This is one of the important aspects which has been the reason in building the Islamic civilization. So one of the factors that helped this Islamic civilization is religion. If we talk about Islam as a system of life, especially in the political system, we see that this has become unwitnessed now. So the Islamic world without religion cannot play an important role. Thirdly, the identity. Muslim has been lost in ideology search. Ideology means ideas that are contradictory to Islam. They are topics that cannot achieve stability, prosperity to the Muslim community. So the topic of wealth redistribution is subject to re-evaluation of socialism and capitalism. So we are just dealing with these two systems. So the situation has produced a deformed individual, a Muslim who is not Muslim. And in the end, the one who distributes the wealth is the element that is disunited, which is torn illogically. While on the other side, on the other world, the nations are united. So how can we have this torn society have the same situation that the united societies have? Also, we have to achieve one important matter, which is the age of nano, which is part of billionth of part. So this means that the conflict on wealth will increase, and this we should be frank in telling our leaders and communities. As we spoke about these concepts of state, economy, individual, now we can talk about the reality of redistributing wealth. As to capitalism, socialism, to achieve social justice, they think that redistribution of wealth through the ideology of socialism means redistributing poverty. That is because capitalists and businessmen leave their countries and go to other countries. As to the capitalist world, they holify, they sanctify the individual. Here, they think that the hoarding of wealth will make the society disunited. That's why they think that distributing the wealth will make people stable and prosper. Islamic Sharia is very clear about wealth, and it has given a lot of details about wealth. It has given details about disbursement, how to curb the problems of poverty and crisis, how to exploit earth, the land. And this is one of the important issues. Now, why we redistribute wealth? Because absence of justice leads to destruction of nations. It gives space to illegal migration and many other problems. If we don't realize the system of redistributing wealth, that will lead to the destruction of countries. Secondly, how we can realize just redistribution of wealth? Two elements. Number one, distribution, and distributor. In this point, Islamic world has a big trouble in its inability to continue in the science of qualifying the Islamic nations. This qualification will lead the Ummah to well govern its wealth. And this will lead the community stability, and stability will enable us to be developed. In reality, how can we realize or achieve this qualification in its best form? This is possible through the elements: activating consultation. We have to consult the elite of the Islamic world. We have to present them in these in these issues, because democratic representation now presents people who are unqualified and they have untrue sincerity. Second, we have to engage the society in the process of redistribution of wealth, especially in accountability. So every Muslim individual can practice his observation of the situation. Second, we have to frankly tell the situation about the reality of the state, because people, if they feel their dignity, they will ask the state about stability and about crisis. In the war of Bosnia, the Croatian president told his people that they don't have enough money for having war. So he asked his people, either they can allow him to buy arms. And this is what makes Croatia one of the strong countries in Europe. Not telling the society frankly, this will lead the state to do things which are impractical. One of the Sahaba asked the Rasulullah, why we are defeated? Rasulullah said, not because you are little, not because you are few, but because you are unimportant. So indulgent in engagement and share in distribution of wealth will ensure the achievement of social justice. Lastly, we have to consider the different levels of society. What led Ukraine to be divided is that the people in east part, they feel that there is discrimination between them and the northern part of the northern population. That's why they choose disunity, a split from the country. And one of the reasons of country split is the unconsideration of redistribution of wealth. The challenges that I'm going to address is that, number one, how to find a new form that can be implemented in the society. Number two, qualifying the Muslim women. As Mr. Abdul Hamid bin Badi said, that the Islamic community cannot fly with one wing like the bird. So it has to have two wings, the male and female. Number three is to re-establish the values in the Islamic society. If you move from the part to the whole, then the Islamic theory, the Islamic theory moves from the minor to the major. And this will, the one can achieve what 10 of people can achieve. And peace of Muhammad sallallahu.
Dr. Muhammad Amin, for very straightforward and frank and honest opinion about the landscape of the shared prosperity in the West as well as in the East. In the interest of the time, I won't be able to take all of the questions. Perhaps to be fair with you, we can open up to the 3 questions, and from there we will ask the panelists to respond briefly. So you can see the hand, first hand, perhaps second hand from the lady, and the third hand in the middle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brief, yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Datuk Bakar, to the distinguished panel. I've been here for 2 days, and I hear the leaders talking about. Coming from yesterday and today, I would like to ask the panel, when you talk about wealth and shared prosperity, that is a history of Islamic civilization that is counter to the current model of economic world order. We built 7 civilizations inspired by Islam, and the last was Ottoman. What is missing from this conference is, first, the individual Muslim responsibility. Has a Khalifa and Abdullah of God. That is missing. We are calling ourselves as a citizen of city. Therefore, we abdicate our responsibility to the state and to the company and to the community. First factor. Second factor, we have not revisited, neither have heard at all the word called wakaf. Never. Because wakaf has been the mainstay of 7 civilizations. And as what has mentioned the last speaker, the achievement of social justice, economic justice. And what we have here is that we have here social obligation and duty. It's not a question of right.
Can you be direct to the question?
My question is that will this conference lead a resolution, the revival of wakaf has a new alternative to mainstream development model beyond World Bank and IMF and UNSG? Thank you very much.
Very much. The sister.
Okay, you're talking. Okay, fine. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Sister Mariamah and I'm from Universities UITM Melaka, and I'm teaching international business and creative thinking. All right. Well, first of all, where is the woman representative in your speech? One, because you have to have beauty among the tones. There is balance. Okay. Alhamdulillah, that's one. Now, I teach trade liberalization, okay? And I'm thinking that among the Muslim country, we should allow, jangan ada sekatan langsung, jangan. Even though we are thinking about Malaysia, takut, kan? Jangan, itu semua Allah punya kerja. Okay, satu. My question is, okay, kita ada Minister Azmin. Saya harap, saya doakan sihat, insyaAllah. Boleh tak kita buat?
Can we? Conduct our trade from ship to ship and also from plane to plane. We use the ship and we use the plane, whatever form of transportation, and among the Muslim countries. We put scholars in all this. That is my suggestion. That's all. Because you all have to perform your Friday prayers. Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much. Please.
Okay. The third one. The third one, and perhaps Dr. Al-Shaykhuna Al-Qadari was asking as the one, perhaps the fourth one for him because he's a great scholar among us. Perhaps the third and the fourth one, and we have to stop and giving the opportunity for the panelists to respond.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am Mu'in Naim from Istanbul. In reality, the leaders and some of the speakers talking today about our inability to produce, or what we produce in our countries is not of high quality, or that meets the requirements or the desires of the consumers. This is not the problem. The base of the problem is that we try to find the best quality products without improving the national products. We are talking about China. China started maybe 15 years ago. The Chinese products were not good, were of low quality. But nowadays, the Chinese products are of high quality. The best products in the world are made in China or assembled in China. We are also talking about international lobbies. They are trying very hard to focus and promote their own products. So what we need or seek from our Muslim Ummah to help and buy products, national products, not just only to buy products of high quality. They shouldn't think about the quality when they buy their own products. It's one of the basic building units for the independence of the countries, and to be away and avoid the dependence on foreign countries. And thank you. To have an institution to support.
Habib.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Shukran, Akhi al-Rais. For all the scholars and researchers, we benefited from their words delivered by them, talking about the redistribution of the wealth. It's very important in when we talk about the Islamic economy. Islamic economy is based on the consolidation in the society and the disappearance of classism in the society. So the philosophy of Islam is to and the world is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even we are the users of this or the possessors at the same time, but it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The redistribution of the wealth is part of the government and part of the society. It's the responsibility of the government and the society. If the best thing about Islam that the individual is responsible for the redistribution of the wealth, it's also part of his responsibility. If the government doesn't do its job, the individual should do his own task. Talking about the zakat, at the time of the caliphates, there were zakat and there were also money collected from the people, and they were redistributed among the nation, and they were also allocated for defense strategies. Talking also about Umar ibn al-Khattab, Yemen, 90% of the people are poor. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Sayyidina Mu'adh returned the zakat half and then a third, then all the money, because the people at that time were very rich. Even at the time for Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, people didn't need to have zakat. The first year, from abject poverty to the sufficiency, and from sufficiency to be not to need anything, and to be really, it's a great theory, but unfortunately it wasn't taught in detail. I wrote a study and I compared it to our society. In 2007, I conducted research on the Arabic world and the Islamic world, and I found out that zakat, the Gulf states zakat, from the resources that I have found from the corporations and the exchange, it was $1 billion for $300 million. So it's a very big size of money. I'm not talking about the oil, zakat, and the other products. And I didn't talk about this thing. And also about the state funds, in which that it has more than $2 trillion. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about $400 million. Just only, I'm talking about the zakat that is supposed to be on this money. And this is what I think. The zakat of Muslimin reaches to $6 million. If annually we redistribute this money, we have $400 million from the Gulf states. How do you think that will have a poor person in the Muslim world? We are responsible before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thank you.
Sorry everyone, the time is not.
الوقت ليس في مصلحتنا، فهناك جلسة قادمة وهناك صلاة الجمعة بعد فترة، وهذا أطلب من
Any question or order question, if you like, we have only 2 minutes to respond to each or order question. Honorable Minister, first.
Thanks. There's a concern expressed by one of the participants that there's no women representation in the panel. But let me assure you that all the speakers are also the defender of women and men, and we will speak on your behalf, inshallah. Secondly, let me also share with you that there are challenges in realizing our shared prosperity vision, namely internal and also external forces. But as for the external challenges, the overarching issue is the complexity and also the volatility of the global economy and high dependence of larger economies. That was the reason why I suggested earlier that we must build critical mass to gain economies of scale, but these require economic unity among the Muslim countries. We have the potentials, we have the human capital, we have the resources, but what is required is to identify the niche products for each country, and as suggested by the Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir, yesterday, that we must try to trade among the Muslim countries so that we can increase the productivity and also the potentials of our Muslim Ummah. Thanks.
Certainly we need to do a redistribution of rights between men and women. So I do agree with that, and we do need to have more panels more sisters on the panel. In terms of the economics, I think certainly the integrity of the leadership and the government is number one, to promote, to support, to encourage, and to be the role model and example for the country, whether businesses or individuals or those in government. That integrity is very important. We have seen countries with honest leadership does produce results. Number two, creating jobs, encouraging small businesses. That help redistribute the wealth among members of the society. There is certainly much more complex economic relationship today in the world, the banking systems, the interest rates, many other factors. We do need conferences like this for scholars and experts in economics to focus and develop a new financial policies. And certainly the Muslim countries do constitute a successful model for a common market, just like the European Union. I think an Islamic Union is bound to be created because the need of the area, the wealth within the area is immense, and it has been wasted on wars that leads to nothing but destruction. And I think it is about time for us to invest and to look inward and to create our own model. I think the world is looking. We do have the answers. We just did not know how to develop it to the point where it becomes beneficial not only to Muslims, but to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding a question from some of our participants about Waqaf and things, what's supposed to discuss or not to discuss in this forum, I don't think I'm in the right position, in the position to answer this. But for me, the organizer, his initiative is a very significant and important event, and as we can see, it's not easy to have this kind of event. There's many challenges we are facing, or the organizer facing, to have this kind of great event. So I think it's not, for me, it's not a right place to have a aggressive comment. Maybe if we have a proposal for any idea, maybe you can give directly to the organizer. Thank you very much.
بالنسبة إلى جودة تطوير المنتجات، في الحقيقة أنه أحيانا نقع في التشيء والشيئية. مثلا نأتي إلى ماليزيا نشاهد ناطحات سحاب فنقول في اليمن لا يوجد ناطحات سحاب، إذا نوجد ناطحات سحاب فانتهى، صرنا بلد متقدم. الحقيقة ليست المشكلة في نقص الأشياء، في نقص الفعالية والفاعلية في الإنسان. ثانيا هذا يمكن يتحقق مثلما تحدث المتحدثون في الجلسة الأولى عن طريق تحقيق جودة التعليم والاستثمار في التعليم. إذا جئنا إلى الصين، الصين تشتري بملايين الدولار، بمئات ملايين الدولارات براءات الاختراع من أمريكا وتخضعها للدراسة في الصين.
So if we speak about what our Sheikh spoke about, the Islamic system has a privilege in the matter of wealth redistribution. So the Muslim community has a right on rich other than zakah. If the state doesn't do its rights, then the obligation will move from the state to the rich people. In fact, frankly, the economic elite should do their job. And what we see is that they don't do their job toward their communities. As Sheikh mentioned, lastly, the problem is not in the programs and others, but it is the collection of conflicts in the Muslim world. In the mind of Muslim, he is Muslim, but in his reality, he is not. That's why we are not free. Thank you. Shukran.
The panelists, I think we have come to the end of the session. It seemed to me that all the panelists and speakers are on the same page in urging the importance of to create more job, better job, better skill set, and to create the ability to produce, to manufacture, and subsequently to buy from each other to enhance the shared prosperity within and among Muslim countries. I'm intrigued basically to share with you a very powerful Quranic verse on this topic, because to distribute is hard, but to create wealth is harder. So we have to focus on wealth creation first before we can talk about wealth distribution. In Al-Baqarah, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوَ. The companion was asking the Prophet, what should we be giving out to charity? And Allah revealed to the Prophet, answer your companion, قُلِ الْعَفْوَ. According to Ibn Abbas, the afwa means the surplus of the wealth. So we have to be the surplus society, not the deficit society, to be able to distribute the wealth moving forward. Let us put our hand together to thank all the panelists for their interesting discussion. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
With that, thank you, Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, for moderating a fruitful session. Hopefully, through this platform, we can formulate ways to ensure the Muslim community to be more self-sufficient economically, to be able to formulate systematic mechanisms to redistribute wealth within the Ummah, and ultimately to have the political and inner will to do so. Now, I would like to invite our distinguished speakers, together with the moderator, Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, for a group photo. Well done once again to all of the speakers. Indeed, a fruitful discussion. And I believe they deserve a round of applause. Jazakallah khairan kathiran. Ladies and gentlemen, inshallah, we shall commence with our next session very, very soon. But before that, I would like to share a hadith which I believe is extremely pertinent and relevant to the topic discussed earlier. That is where Rasulullah ﷺ said in a hadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. And I believe this is a common hadith that all of us know. That Rasulullah said, which means none of you has faith, has iman, until he loves his brother what he loves for himself. So inshallah, hopefully with this discussion, the fruitful discussion that we had earlier on, we will have the political will to actually share what we want for ourselves with all of our brothers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, I humbly request for everyone to remain inside the hall. Perhaps if you would like to have a cup of coffee, please do so, but quickly come back as we will commence with our next session very, very soon. As today, time is of essence. It's Yawm al-Jum'ah, and we will have our prayers very, very soon later. So therefore, let's try to maintain and take care of our timing, inshallah.